In today's episode, we're talking with Maria Grabowska, a mother and the creator of iLo Retreats. iLo Retreats is a bespoke family vacation that allows parents and children the opportunity to have an amazing, rejuvenating holiday in exotic destinations. With Montessori childcare included, luxury villas, and private chefs in destinations like Tuscany, Portugal, and Provence, iLo Retreats is flipping the script on traditional family getaways by prioritizing restorative travel for parents. Yes, you heard that right. Vacations that allow parents to unwind, relax, and return to their busy lives feeling refreshed and reconnected.
Welcome, Maria, to the Romaru podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you. Tell us where you are phoning in from today.
I am phoning in from Copenhagen, Denmark. So the fairy tale place to raise kids.
Yes, Denmark is known as one of the best places in the world to raise kids. Lots of different policies in the U.S. here. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to raise your child in Denmark.
I think it's as easy as it could possibly be. Of course, parenthood is challenging. I'm a mom of one. I have a toddler, 2.5 years old. And of course, parenthood isn't easy, but Denmark makes it easier. I compare to many of my friends living in the US, and Copenhagen is just the dream come true for so many reasons, starting from the fact that you don't need a car, which I know to have a child and be fully mobile. So I know this is something that Americans often cannot say. But yeah, it's amazing.
And now you lived in California, so you can compare it to the U.S. lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I actually was considering to give birth in California and raise my son there in his early years, but we've decided against it. We've decided that Europe is perhaps hard to beat for those early young families.
Yeah. And before we
started the podcast, it seems like Maria and Colette had like similar experiences on opposite continents.
Yes, moving abroad while pregnant and then having to decide where you want to give birth based on different healthcare systems and all the intricacies there and the anxiety that goes along with it, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just such a process to give birth and understand what it takes and feel comfortable that to get to know another foreign healthcare system alongside that process is just not worth it.
I know when we were going through it, I looked at Colette and I said, I'm not putting pressure on you, but I said, you get to make the call. I said, because in the end, you're the one giving birth. And I said, I will support you either way we go. And then one day I got a text that was like, we should put in our notice to our tenant or our landlord.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. And we're going to get into your amazing company that you've developed, but I have one quick question because I think this is a big shocker for Americans. When it comes to paid family leave in Denmark, what did you get when you had your baby? How many weeks off did you get for maternity leave?
So you get 4 weeks before your due date. And on top of that, I think you can get minimum 7 months, but of fully paid leave. But then most companies offer a year or so. I, at that time, got a year, and then I extended it with my vacation. So I actually was on maternity leave for 13 months, which I was very happy about.
And now, is this government sponsored?
So a part of it, yes, but then many employers just decide to subsidize it. So it really depends, but most people can take a year with having some income from the government. So some salary subsidized from the government.
Wow. It sounds like Denmark really supports its parents.
It really does. It really does. I mean, at the end of the 13 months, I was like, I'm ready to do something else, but yes, it was a blessing. Really, I was very grateful for that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, here in the U.S., we get 0.
I know.
It is one of the only countries in the world with no paid parental leave. So hopefully in the next few years, maybe after 4 years, something will happen. But I digress. Maria, tell us about the amazing company that you developed. And I can see that also your company supports parents just like Denmark does. So tell me about it.
Yeah, my company is called iLo Retreats. And what we do is we try to create experiences created for parents, by parents. So when I became a parent, I really understood. I think many parents can say that like a whole new world opens to you. You know, you've had parents in your circles before, but now you finally understand, whoa, what is it that they're dealing with? And so I understood a couple of things. First of all, how isolated we live. We're the first generation of parents that live far away from their proverbial village. Second of all, we're the first generation of parents that live mostly in double income households, meaning that we really juggle both the career expectations, but also very high expectations around parenting, everything around gentle parenting. You need to provide 10,000 sensory activities to your child, etc., etc. And so those factors lead to really taking a toll on the relationship. I noticed, at least that was the case for me and my partner, that you just have no emotional capacity to be in your relationship if you have to deal with raising your child in an isolated space and then also juggling the other expectations. So I just asked myself, what do I need? And I just really felt like I need a break. I needed to escape. I needed to reset something for my nervous system to rest. And normally before I had my child, I would go traveling. But then if you Google what are travel-friendly options, you get a search of, all the resorts that nobody wants to go to, that are like palace of hyperactivity and overstimulation and all that. So I just really thought, okay, what do I want to put money in as a traveler? So long introduction, but now we started hosting retreats that are very boutique setting at very unique venues. And we provide 5 hours of daily Montessori childcare by early education staff. So parents can have 5 hours to themselves every day, reconnect with each other. We don't have strict schedules at our retreats like at other retreats. Parents can do whatever they want. If they want to sleep, I'm happy for them to sleep. If they want to go for a hike, that's great. I think as parents, we have rarely the opportunity to do whatever we want. And yeah, so that's what we do. We also provide quality food, even to the little ones. So if your toddler loves just plain pasta, we'll make sure that it's handmade. Yeah.
Spoken as a true toddler mom.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, long intro, but this is what we do. We started hosting retreats for parents to really be able to rest. So we try to redefine what family-friendly means, family-friendly travel.
Yeah, you've hit so many hot emotional topics for us because there's one thing it's like both of us are working and we both want to work, we both enjoy it, but we also want to be parents. And so you're probably dealing with this as well. It's this new responsibility. If you look at in the past where you had very structured roles of what typically was the wife took care of the house and the kids and the man went and earned an income. Some days I'm like, that seems like the dream, because then there's not this, well, hear me out for a moment. There's not this constant back and forth of, hey, who's going to get her ready for school? Who's going to make the lunch? And not saying that I don't enjoy doing that stuff. What makes it difficult is the constant communication. And that's what I've realized is we always have to work on that. And because we want to do this, we have to spend a lot of time communicating, planning. We always have to have the expectations, even our daily stuff. It's like, hey, who's going to get ready in the morning? And you kind of have to figure out the schedule. And our lives aren't that simple to just be like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday works like this, and Tuesday and Thursday work like this. It's always just this give and take, this ebb and flow. And, previous generations didn't have that. So in some ways it was easier. In some ways it was harder.
I think it's a mental load that was typically burdened by the mother, by the female, that's now shared with millennials and parenting. And it's a gift that the men are so involved. But it's also a challenge because then it brings up communication issues like you spoke about. So I think I love the fact that you talk about the couple reconnecting on these trips or having the opportunity to, because when you have a baby, there is that roommate phase, and it has to be that way because you are trying to keep a tiny human alive, and that's really hard. You've never done it before, and there's no handbook to this. And so then there's that reconnection period. That's so important and beautiful and hard to do because there aren't many there's not many like facets or companies that can help support you. You really have to have intention when doing that. So I love the fact that, yeah, it'd be great to go on a family vacation, but by the end of most family vacations, you're drained. You're like, oh my God, we were trying to do all of the things all at once, and we never even got to connect, or we never got like a dinner together or a hike together. So thank you for creating retreats that are doing so, because I feel like, yes, there are some kids clubs or there are some family-focused, I would say kid-focused resorts. But I love that you take this, I would call it maybe a European approach to parenting of everybody in the family is important. Everybody's happiness is very important, even when it comes to the vacation. And that's not being selfish. It's just being realistic.
Yeah. I mean, I think my assumption, and I speak very much from experience, is there were two things that I considered when creating this service. First of all, I feel like I can only really truly relax when I know my child is in good hands. So many kids clubs offer, you can drop them off at a kids club, but I don't feel comfortable leaving my son with a teenager who's just making some money on the side. I want to know that my child is also having a good time. So that's kind of how I built the team around our childcare team. Everyone has an early childhood education. They've all worked in nurseries, both in the US, in the UK, but also in Denmark. So there's a cultural mix. And second of all, what you're saying about that reconnection, to me, it's an investment in the relationship, but it's also an investment into how I am present with my child. I'm a better parent when I'm rested. I know I enjoy spending time with my 2.5-year-old when I had a good time, when I'm not dreaming of doing something else, when I'm not, clocking the time of like, oh my God, when's the nap time? So this is what I'm trying to really offer to parents, because I know it can be really hard. And also, you mentioned that the mental load of, managing a household before, like back in the days, was on the mother. But there's actually studies showing that in the 70s, a stay-at-home mother would spend less time with their children than a full-time working mom now. So we really have very high standards of what it means to parent. And I just want parents to just let go for a second.
Yeah, I think both things can be true. You can want to spend time with your parents and also want time for yourself.
Yeah.
And I know exactly, we've had a few experiences where we've been out and, had like a little nanny or, not too many really, just a handful, but being able to step away for a few hours, the two of us, and then come back, It's like, you're so excited to see your kids. And it's really nice when it's not just, because we've also had an experience where it's like the hotel was built for the kids. And even though we may not have been with them, you're just like inundated with all this like cacophony of sound of all the children around you. And you're like, I'm not really having that much fun.
This isn't a vacation.
This isn't a vacation.
For us. Yeah. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you said how hard it is to trust someone, a stranger, a teenager with your child. I think that has held I know that has personally held me back a lot when finding childcare in new places. I'm really cautious, and rightly so, to make sure that the person that's watching my baby is qualified to do so and it's safe. Because if you're in a new country, there's like a whole other world of anxieties that opens up in my brain of this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. And I don't think I'm the only mom that thinks that way. But for me, then I say, is it worth it to hire childcare if I'm just going to be worried the whole dinner?
Yeah.
Is she okay? What are they doing? So the fact that you are vetting these and they're Montessori childcare providers, that is huge. I already feel like my nervous system went, you can relax now. You can go enjoy.
You should join. But no, and exactly so our retreats are, of course, they're a little more expensive than if you would go on like a resort vacation. But it is also because if you come with us, we do fly in the childcare. So it is people we've worked with. So if you continue coming to our resorts, it's going to be mostly the same people. So that also builds that trust. And you know that this isn't someone that iLo just met, at the location of where we're hosting a retreat. So yeah.
And what's the typical size of a retreat?
So the smallest one we've hosted was of 5 families. And that's in Provence. We actually have 2 coming up this May. And then the biggest one we've hosted was 10 families. And my hope, we're also looking at how to scale this model. But my hope is to stay within the size of maximum 12 families, to avoid that, resort feeling of just being very loud and all kids crying, etc. Also because this is when you can really, sit, have an intimate dinner with the other parents if you like, have a glass of wine. And so it's more of a homey feeling. So they're very boutique.
And how many childcare providers are typically, what's the ratio of childcare per child?
So we commit to a ratio of 1 to 3. So 1 childcare educator per 3 children. And that so far has worked. But of course, the reason we also commit to this ratio is because mostly our clients are with children under 5. But of course, if we have clients in the future coming with older children, we might reconsider. But I think 1 to 3 is better than daycares across the world, and that's manageable.
Yeah, that's a great ratio. Is there a minimum age for a child?
No, actually, the youngest one we've had was 4 months old. I think so. So that's very young. I think a couple of considerations to make before bringing a very small baby to us is that we can't accommodate for like very rigid nap schedules. So, if you want your child to sleep only in the cot in your room, we're not going to be able to accommodate a whole educator to your child only. So, as long as you're happy with your child sleeping in the stroller under the trees, we're good. So that's just something to consider.
The Danish nap.
The outdoor nap.
Yeah, exactly. We do put a net on them, so there's no like insects and.
So Maria, when you were launching iLo, how did you go from idea creation to the first retreat?
Oh, what? I mentioned before that at the end of my maternity leave, I was very ready to do something else, and it was my outlet to something else than my son, if I'm completely honest. So I worked on the brand while he was napping. And then I think I was just like, I'm just going to book a venue and see what happens. So I've worked on the brand during my maternity leave, and then I just booked a venue. and it just sold out. And I was actually honestly shocked. Yeah, but I had, in the beginning, I had no intention of like making money off it and so on. I was like, I just don't want to put money into other people vacations. But I was like, as long as I break even, I'm going to be happy with this experience and see if it works. So that's it.
And where was the first retreat?
It was in Tuscany, right outside of Pisa. It was only a year and a half ago. So we're a very young company.
So you booked, how big was this venue?
That was the one for 10 families.
And then how did you find the families? Was it just through your website?
I have no idea. I think honestly, I just got like stupid lucky to some extent. We of course have Instagram where we were active. And we partnered up with an influencer here in Denmark. She's American, based in Denmark, and she just thought that it was a good idea to partner up with us. That she has many children, etc. So she understood the problem, and so I think a lot of the customers came through her. But honestly, I think I just got really lucky, because also the chances of being a very new business and partnering up with this influencer who has over 100,000 followers, they were very low. But somehow I just got lucky. So I'm not like a business mastermind strategist of how I came about it.
Well, I think it's kind of like, is it Gilbert talking about like the ideas that
Liz Gilbert.
Liz Gilbert talks about how ideas are basically flying through the ether. And I think it's just a good idea that would work no matter what, but it did require your professionalism and, attention to detail to execute it. You could have this great idea, but to able to follow through and have the tenacity to do it, that's what was amazing. But that is so impressive to just say, I'm going to book this venue and see if it sells and see if I can sell it.
Yeah.
That's so amazing.
And, I think you're also asking me how I did it, but the first retreat, now I can say it, the operations of it were a complete mess. I also just am so grateful for the team I got, because, for example, the entire team of educators I hired for that retreat and the chef that I hired for this retreat, on that retreat, they did way beyond what was their job description and what they were compensated for. It was just, they knew it's the first one. And then we came there and we had to figure out things on our own, and they were working day and night. So I also got really, 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 really lucky with the team, that they were just ready to bend over backwards to make that first one work. And then we've streamlined since then.
And how many retreats have you had since then?
So we had 4 last year, and then we have 4 planned for the upcoming year. By upcoming, I mean 2025. I'm still still in 2024. So we have 4 in 2025. And then we also launched a bespoke service. So if none of the dates we're offering work for you, but you have friends that you would like to travel with, we can recreate the iLo experience for your extended family or for your group of friends, etc. And we've had a few bespoke customers as well throughout the years. So yeah, but we're working on a product that would bring the retreats to be a more scalable solution than just the 4 we can offer in a year.
Now, what are you offering in terms of locations for 2025?
So we offer Provence, that is an hour outside of Marseille. We offer 2 in May there. Then we have Portugal in July, and right next to Lisbon, but in a national park. And then we have Puglia in Italy in late September.
Oh, beautiful. Those are some great locations.
Puglia is where Colette's mother's family's from.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. Why don't you move there?
Oh, we were thinking about Italy for some time, but yeah, we didn't opt there, unfortunately. But I am an Italian citizen, as is my daughter
Oh,
and soon to be son. So, yes.
Yeah.
So there's always that option if we choose to exercise it. But those sound like beautiful locations. And now you mentioned that you have a chef that comes in. Can you tell me more about that? Because we are such foodies over here. And I think any parent would say, oh my gosh, someone else is cooking. Thank goodness.
yes. So our chef, kind of head chef, who also manages all the other chefs, unfortunately, she cannot travel to all the retreats. Her name is Manon. She's actually based out of Austin, but she is French. And she's an entrepreneur herself, so I'll just mention her. But if anyone is based in Austin, she actually has a service to provide meals for moms in postpartum period. So it's a delivery service. So she's French, but she grew up in the Reunion Island. So her flavors are very much Creole, French, and now she cooks in the US. So it's a mix, and she has an approach to just using everything that there is. So really to reduce waste as much as possible. So, at our retreats, it's not a Michelin star treatment, Instagrammable, tiny little flour on top of meals. It's very family style meals, big portions, high quality ingredients. And then we have a couple of chefs that we use also in Provence, also in Puglia, and so on. So our chef network is built just as our educators network, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are there any opportunities to learn from the chefs since food is such a great learning experience for kids?
Yeah, so we do. That's actually one of the activities. So on our website, you can look at sample activities for kids by age. And for the older kids, I mean, like when they're 4, 5, and 6, we usually have a class with the chefs. So they help, they cook together, they lunch, for example. So it's super fun, but it's also an opportunity for parents. We also hosted cooking classes for the parents if they wanted to cook together, something local.
That's so nice. And when it comes to the activities that you organize at your retreats, what other activities do you have? It seems very open-ended, but I'd love to learn more about what you have.
It is very open-ended because this is kind of a bespoke thing we do. So when you book a retreat with us, we will send you a welcome booklet in which we will show you what is there to do in that area you're going to. And that's everything from recommendations of restaurants, a list of recommendations of restaurants, to hikes, but also more active options. I really can't think now, but if you want to go sailing, we'll figure it out. But it's not something we have set. We just have worked with some operators that we can recommend. But generally, all of our locations are supposed to be somewhere where there's something to do. So, for example, in Provence, we're just a 5-minute walk away from the most beautiful village, very like Beauty and the Beast vibes. So you can really just walk out of the house and do something. So if that makes sense, but we don't really have like set activities that we provide.
There's no set schedule.
Yes.
But you can kind of do as you wish, and there's plenty of opportunities and activities
Exactly.
to choose
And well, the two things that we do offer at retreats, and now I just forgot, is a Montessori workshop. So how to bring modern Montessori approach to your home in an easy way, without have to buy all wooden toys and all that. And then second thing is that there's daily yoga. So you can start your day with yoga, just as something nice.
Yes.
That's lovely.
So it seems like you had such a home run on your first retreat. During this process, have you had any major speed bumps? or hiccups or problems that you've run into launching such an amazing business?
Yeah, our Marrakesh retreat was hard to sell. That was quite tricky. We had the most amazing venue, but it was hard to sell. I think I realized people did not feel comfortable going outside of Europe. That is a lot of the feedback we got. And it was a shame. Of course, at the end, we ended up having a group. I think we ended up with a group of 6 families. But it was a shame. But it made me realize that, when you're traveling with little ones, safety is number one, and you just want to feel safe.
Yeah, I think both of us have, as crazy in how much we've traveled, and we know, places. Well, we actually just went to Marrakesh, but like the true risk, but also there's the like dad risk that you have in your mind, and it's so hard to get those two to align. Like we went to Marrakesh, and we went to what's the main market?
We just went to like the outdoor market in Marrakesh, like the main Medina.
I'm so glad we made this decision, but we didn't bring our daughter with us just because it's a little too chaotic. But we could have. I mean, there were kids there, but it's
We were just like, do we want to be worried about her running around with the taxis and the Cobras and the motorbikes, going weaving in and out? Or do we want to just do that as just the two of us, and then we'll reconnect with our daughter back at the resort? And we chose the latter. So, and I'm grateful we did. Yeah. Like, it would have been cool to have her, and I think it would have taken me out of the moment, and I would have gone into full mom protector mode. And I think if she was a little older, I probably would have taken her, like if she was 7 and I wasn't so worried about her just like sprinting away.
No, I mean, I completely understand what you're saying. I think to me, and I brought my son to Marrakesh, and I do have to admit, although I was organizing the trip, I did hold onto him just a little bit tighter because of the crowds. But it also did make me think of what it means to travel, and that you have to have some level of comfort with being outside of your comfort zone. So for example, we requested all the taxis for our customers to have car seats of certain size for certain. And then the taxi drivers just brought this up to 1 year old, up to 8 kilos car seat. And all the children there were like 2+. So, but it's just because it's a cultural thing. No kid in Morocco has a car seat, so they had no idea what we were asking, although they wanted to be accommodating. And it just made me think, if I really want my son to experience other cultures, then I also need to adapt somehow. Like, I cannot impose my standards on them. So just little things that I noticed there. But
that's a really, really great point, that I think it's so hard because as travelers, as just individuals and as a couple, we know that, we live that, and we're here for it. And then you throw in the child factor, and it totally throws me for a loop. Like, even as an experienced, open-minded, very tolerant traveler, I get very nervous now in different situations, and I have to recognize that and acknowledge it. And yes, I try to adapt and learn from it, while also not just inflicting like a whole other level of anxiety on myself. So it's a balancing act.
Totally, yeah.
So we've learned a lot about iLo, but I would like to know, do you have any daily routines or anything that you've picked up during this process to kind of help you stay focused while creating such an amazing business?
Very good question. I think for entrepreneurs, and I'm no Sam Altman, but I think what I realized, and it's in small things, is that everybody wants to be an advisor to startups or to entrepreneurs. And everybody has a piece of advice. Rarely people decide to make the leap of I'm going to go on my own. And it made me realize that the most valuable, or the things that worked out the best for me, is when I trust my gut. I'm the one who knows my customers because I know parents, I have the unique insight and so on. And so I can only create a valuable, and I know this isn't a business podcast, but I can only create a valuable service to parents if I trust that instinct, not everyone else, you know? So I think that has been something that I've been really trying to cultivate inside me, or just like trusting my gut, that I know what millennial parents are looking for. But was your question more about traveling or?
No. I think I asked if there was any daily routine or anything that you've learned, but I think your answer was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I think daily routine. I don't think.
And I think what you said is I loved. I think it resonates with us too. Is that there's so many working for ourselves. There's so many ways you can go, especially being an entrepreneur. You're getting hit with 1,000 decisions, and you got to understand. There's, especially as a parent, you realize like time is a resource. How do you spend that resource? You have so much money as a resource, and people will give you advice because it's free and it doesn't cost them anything. But so many times we've realized like it's us working together. It's our brains putting energy into this system is what's going to create value. And I can see exactly how with you as well, like, what to do, and you can't necessarily draw it on a whiteboard or put on paper exactly, but you just know, hey, this is the decision I need to make. And then I'm going to move forward. And so, no, that's a very valuable thing to say, is that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, one, it needs to be something well, and then when you do know it, just trust your gut sometimes.
Yeah.
Has that always been easy for you to trust your gut? Or is that something that you're learning over time, or something that became more profound when you became a mother?
Very good question. I do think that becoming a mother has made me more in sync with my instinct, that and I don't want to sound cocky, but I just don't allocate time to nonsense anymore. I know what will yield results both in personal and professional life. And I think before becoming a mother, also because you have so much time, that you kind of give attention to everything. And now I'm just a little bit more focused because I know I can work from this to this time. And I really try not to work after I pick up my son from daycare. So I think it made me in sync, one, instinctively, but also just the circumstances force you to. I've actually been thinking about it a lot, how becoming a parent makes you a more efficient professional.
Yes, I would agree. I heard one of my friends he's manages some employees, and his employees don't have any kids and they're younger, and he was just talking about how he's like, I guess one of the employees couldn't get something done or had some excuse, and he was just like, listen, he's like, I had an hour and a half and I did this during the nap. He's like, you don't have, I think he was just telling me as a joke, like, you don't have any kids. Like, what are you doing during this time period? Like, you got to be efficient. But I think there is something, it's like an adult. It's like a parent superpower that, because you have a child to take care of, be it with them physically or not, you just naturally make the best decision, and you have to make them quick.
Right. I think your priorities shift massively. I know I asked that question because the former people pleaser in me used to be that way. And then when I had a child, things totally shifted because it had to, because my priority was her and because her safety became everything. So I'm personally learning how to trust my own gut again, instead of asking others, what do I think, or what's going to please that person. I know what I have to do for my child to be safe, and that's my main job, is to keep her safe. And then from there, it's like a really good guiding point. Like that's my North Star and I can go from there. So I really value that you are trusting your gut in these decisions. And I think it's really important for entrepreneurs, for mothers, for everyone to really listen to that inner voice because it's there for a reason, right?
Yeah. And I think I also noticed that it even goes further, that I have a greater sense of responsibility because I do ask my question, what kind of world do I want my son to live in? And, I've always, watching American politics, have seen the anchors ask these questions. And I've always been like, what are they talking about? Like, who cares? And now I have a child, as in like, it was a very abstract concept for me to understand, oh, you're creating a world for another generation. Like technically that, but you don't have that emotional attachment to it. And now I know. And now I really try to spend more responsibly. I will vote in every election, there's no skipping. So little things like that there's a greater sense of responsibility that I feel because my son will be a part of that world, I don't
100%. It's like a civic responsibility, a responsibility to the community that didn't exist before. Your world opens up in a whole new way, and it's hard to understand until you go through it.
I mean, even viewing time, like the concept of, there's time from like, I've got 2 hours, but then there's also the idea of like, oh, she's going to graduate high school what year? Like that, something that was 5 years away seemed that's too far away before a child. Now you're thinking in the time scale of, basically like 18 years. Okay, what's going to happen? There's the savings, there's all this, there's the financial. So yeah, it really just changes your mind.
I agree.
Completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for me also, one big change that I noticed after having my son is that I realized how terrible of a friend I was to my friends that had kids. It's just because they all had kids and I would like go visit them, bring no gift and so on. And now I also just try to be a better friend. So that civic responsibility also just goes to my immediate community. But I think many parents feel that.
I think every parent has that. If you don't, then you were just an amazing human. But yeah, when we were pregnant with our first, and people were bringing gifts and celebrating the pregnancy, we're like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah. We feel so special, and it was always parents. I'm not saying that no one else brought us a gift, but it typically always was parents. And then we realized, wow, we definitely made some mistakes.
Yeah, I actually apologized to my sister. I was like, I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you when you were having your kids, because I had no idea what you were going through. We have an 11-year age difference, so there's that. She's 11 years older than me, and she was just so present in my life during my pregnancy and postpartum and all of that. And I was like, I wish I was there for you.
Yeah.
When you went through that. And I just didn't know. And I was, you learn a lot when you go,
for sure.
go through parenthood.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody where they can find out more about iLo Retreats.
So we have an Instagram page, of course, which is iLo Retreat, or we have a website. It's iloretreat.com. So very, very, very easy to find us. And we're super responsive on all channels. So if you have any questions, we always respond. Mostly the online operations is just me for now. So if you have a question, I'm making sure I'm going to respond.
Wow.
Is there any availability still in your retreats for 2025?
Yes. In fact, Puglia is still available, and we still have rooms in Provence, a couple of rooms for both of the dates in May. So if you have no plans for May, come on over.
Wonderful. And one big question that people always have is, what is the price range that these retreats go for?
So it really depends on the room. So the prices vary from 2,900 euros per family, and that includes. So what's listed on the website includes accommodation, 5 hours of childcare a day, lunch and dinner for parents, and all free meals per day for the kids. And that varies from 2,900 euros per day to somewhere around 7,000 euros. And most prices include one child, and then we charge additional 300 euros per extra child.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to clarify.
Sorry.
That was the price per trip?
per trip.
Okay, per trip, not per day. Okay.
Oh, no,
I
no.
was thinking, I'm like, wow, that's a very pricey.
Oh, no.
No, it's per trip.
It's per trip,
trip.
per family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many nights is a typical trip?
7.
That's wonderful.
that is an
That's
amazing trip.
really accessible, I think.
Yeah, we're maybe we are too cheap now that you say that.
You gotta test things.
You gotta
see
test the
how it
waters.
goes.
You gotta test the
Yeah.
We're honestly, I'm happy with what we're doing because I can really see that the parents are resting, and that's what I want for now.
That's great. Well, Maria, this has been very educational and inspiring as well. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
you. Well, we hope to see you on an iLo retreat one day.
I hope so.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you're learning from and or enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. These are great free ways to support this podcast. Also, please subscribe to this podcast on both Spotify and Apple. On both of those platforms, you can leave us up to a 5-star review, which would help us out greatly. Please also check out the sponsors mentioned in today's episode. That's the best way to support this show. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please put those in the comment sections in YouTube. And yes, we do read all the comments.